Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Tactical Breakdown series, the show in which we look at players that Arsenal could, should, maybe, and fingers crossed, hopefully will. And it seems that all we're doing is crossing our blooming fingers at the moment, being Arsenal fans. I mean, with the recent news that's come out regarding William Saliba, it's been an extremely tough 24 hours and we're still not 100% sure about what's going on. We've heard a lot of conflicting reports about what's going on. But if you want to get the most recent and up-to-date news, you can check out yesterday's video in which I did a live raw reaction show discussing the news which Spurs had rivalled Arsenal for the signing of the young Frenchman. And obviously that was quite a reaction from both me and also all the people watching. So check out that one. But obviously you've tuned in today to look at a player which Arsenal are going to need if they want to strengthen their defence, and that is the Benfica centre-back Rúben Dias. Now, before I get into the video, of course, please, if you're new around here, please subscribe, turn those notifications on so you never miss a show, and subscribe if you want to keep up to date with all the recent and latest Arsenal news and get different breakdowns from anywhere else on this Arsenal YouTube congested, saturated manifest of different videos. I hope I'm providing something different for you guys, and if you do, leave a comment and tell me that you're liking it or not. I really appreciate any sort of feedback that you're giving me, and the comments, as always, have been really positive, so thank you for that. But let's get into Rúben Dias and talk about the Portuguese and see what he is all about. So obviously this guy is someone which has not just been on Arsenal's radar, but supposedly Manchester United's as well. We were linked to him earlier on in the summer, and so were Manchester United, but Arsenal's strict budget, or so we were told, ruled us out of a possible deal for the 22-year-old. Now, this has now changed because of developments regarding Koscielny. Koscielny, obviously, as most fans know by now, has refused to go on the Arsenal tour, has gone along with disciplinary issues. And it has meant that basically we're in even more dire need of defensive backup. And there's also news that came out that supposedly Arsenal have a lot more to spend than they originally let on, and that comes down to the Louis Zaha deal. Now, Louis Zaha, I do that every time. Wilfried Zaha deal. But obviously you can check out the latest news regarding those two on a different video I did as well. But regarding Dias, this has meant that Arsenal's interest has reignited in the defender, and we've now got to a situation where Arsenal are willing to spend a little bit more to try and get this deal done. Now, the fact that we're being linked with a move for a player with a £54 million buyout clause tells me that Arsenal are even less confident, if this is obviously true, less confident in the signing of William Saliba. Why would you put that much of an outlay on a player that you really don't think you have a need in signing? Now, before I go into the usual tactical breakdown and the statistics of this deal, obviously this is a guy from Portugal, and I know a certain special someone that always is my go-to regarding Portuguese football, and that's José Miguel. You heard him on the Yacine Brahimi video, giving you some excellent up-to-date and really in-depth analysis on the Algerian, and he's going to do the same for Rúben Dias. So I'm going to pass over now to Miguel, who's going to tell you everything you need to know.
Arsenal fans, rumours about a possible move by Rúben Dias to Arsenal have been going really fast. Now, Rúben Dias is in fact a pretty good centre-back. He's very strong physically, quite tall, and has a keen sense of positioning despite his young age. Rúben Dias was raised in Benfica, that have been launching really good players lately, and in the past 2 seasons he has become indisputable in Benfica. Now, however, Rúben Dias still evidences some flaws. He is not a technical must, even though I've seen worse centre-backs when it comes to ball playing, but his mentality and regularity are the main aspects on which I think Rúben Dias should really focus. He tends to be really competent in big games against big teams, but in the other matches, facing teams that are theoretically lesser teams or weaker teams, he tends to relax a lot and make a whole lot of mistakes. He's also pretty aggressive, and more often than not makes unnecessary fouls, also being shown lots of yellow cards and sometimes red cards. But I think overall he's a good centre-back and has a lot of potential. He's still 23 years old, I guess. But Arsenal's manager does have to work on some aspects with Rúben so that he may strive in the Premier League. Take care.
So that was José Miguel's comments on Rúben Dias. Obviously, his thoughts are ultimately that there is a lot of potential to come from Rúben Dias, but there are still some negatives. And when we go into the statistics of the Portuguese defender, you'll learn a little bit more about that. But overall, the player has a lot of potential about him. Only 22, 23 years old, been called up to this Portuguese national side on 11 occasions so far, and also playing throughout the UEFA Nations League and playing exceptionally well in the UEFA Nations League final, in which Portugal obviously won. But he also, and to be fair, he also got added to the UEFA Nations League team of the tournament. So it's another accolade. And he got that call up from being a mainstay in Benfica's team. And obviously being in that Benfica side and a Portuguese side in particular, which has sort of lacked defensive solidity and quality in terms of individuals. As a unit, they've always been sort of strong, especially in more recent years when they won the European Championships. But in terms of individuals, they've really lacked that sort of up-and-coming centre-back to come through. And Rúben Dias is that guy. They've obviously got Cancelo now, Guerrero on the left-hand side, and Pepe sort of on the way out. But of course, he's always been sort of that mainstay player. But with Dias there, they're really showing some really great potential in the players that they're producing in Portugal. And he's definitely one to watch from that lot. But in terms of the links to Arsenal, you can see why. But there are a lot of issues and a lot of disadvantages to Rúben Dias, which do concern me, especially if you're looking at an outlay of about 50 to 55 million pounds, if that is what we would pay for the centre-back. Now let's look into some of the statistics regarding Rúben Dias. Now I wanted to compare him to obviously what we'd say is our best centre-back at the moment, and the fact that we're having to look at this player as our best centre-back is concerning in itself. But the player is one I do like, and that is Socrates. Had a good first season at the club, and probably was the most mainstay of all of our defenders in that back line. And we need someone really to partner him. Rob Holding obviously is going to be out for a little bit longer, it seems, with this injury. Hopefully he can get some recovering going on during pre-season, maybe even to the point where he can feature. But to get to match fit after such a long injury is going to take time and not something you want to risk. So that's clearly why Unai Emery wants to get this back up and get a little bit more experience, a little bit more game time and fitness and quality into that back line. So let's look at the statistics. First off, starting with the heat map, obviously you can see there that Rúben Dias on the right of your screen, or the right of my screen, left of yours, you can see there that obviously he's more leaning to that right hand side, whereas Socrates, you can see obviously is more across the back line, and that comes down to obviously formation. Arsenal playing with the back three, and he definitely leans across that marshalling line and gets into different positions, and playing in the back three means that he moves a lot more, whereas it's a very, very different story for Benfica, and that is why Rúben Dias leans more towards that right-hand side of the back line. So if you look at that and then you compare that to the defensive stats between the two, let's look into those now. In terms of defensive duels, Socrates has a high success rate and a high number of duels that he gets involved with. In terms of aerial duels, Dias actually wins those, but Socrates has more of a percentage in terms of success rate in that area. Slide tackles again fall in the Greeks' favour in terms of numbers and in terms of success. Socrates has more interceptions. He loses the ball less, although Rúben Dias does lose it less in his own half. In terms of recoveries, whilst Rúben Dias does do more of those, again, the Greek defender is higher in terms of the percentage of those won in the opposition's half, which is really positive to show from a centre-back's point of view. And clearances also fall into the Greek defender. So in terms of defending, it's definitely a case where Socrates comes out on top, and that will be down to experience for sure. It'll come down to the fact that he's obviously a lot older and played a lot more games. But to be fair, for the amount that he is winning over someone that would cost us between 50 and 55 million pounds, you'd really want Rúben Dias to be showing a lot more in those defensive stats. So that is a bit of a concern for me. If we move on then to passing, passes definitely fall in Rúben Dias's favour in terms of numbers, but again, not so much in terms of success. So passes, more passes in terms of Dias, but Socrates more successful in the accuracy. Long passes, the same story again, and so it is with through passes. Again, more being made, but more success and more accuracy in Socrates' court. Probably comes down to the fact he's playing an Arsenal side that focus a lot on their passing accuracy in training and trying to play that free-flowing passing, fluid moves, and so obviously that will help him. But passing into the final third is actually something that Rúben Dias is known for. It's something that he really tries to add to his game and use as sort of a new element in which the team as a whole can benefit from, because the passes into the final third are higher in number and higher in accuracy. And if you look at some of the graphics that are on the screen now, it's something that he's sort of added to his arsenal to add to a different sort of tactic in Benfica's game, getting that ball in behind, trying to find João Felix, trying to find Seferovic, and he did that to great success last season, and he was also doing it for Portugal as well, which is really, really good for the national side, of course. In terms of pass ratio, he slightly edges it in terms of that, the more forward passes, the backward passes being made, but for a defender, that is something that you would typically see anyway, and it's not really something to write home about. But overall, when you look at the player, there is obviously a lot of potential there, as José Miguel said earlier on in his breakdown, but for me, if I was to make a judgment on the defender, 22 22 years old, a lot of potential for sure, but I just don't think he's the person to come into Arsenal. When you're seeing the likes of William Saliba, who, when we reviewed him on our own previous tactical breakdown of the Frenchman, we saw that he had a lot more potential, in my opinion, than Rúben Dias does right now, and he's 4 years younger than the guy, and you're going to be looking at a fee that's even greater than that of William Saliba. So I really don't get where this has come from. I can't understand if the links are going to be true or not, but we've looked at the guy, we've broken him down, and now I want to get your thoughts on the player. Do you think that Rúben Dias is someone that Arsenal should have been looking at, or do you think that it's just something thrown up by the media? Because that's sort of where I'm leaning to at the moment. But even if it wasn't, is he someone that you think we should go for, or who do you actually think we should go for? I still lean in the court of the likes of Armando Izu, and it's frustrated me that, for instance, the links towards the Italian have gone down. Dan Axel Zagadou was also linked. So there's been plenty of players who've been linked to, but unfortunately we can't seem to get one over the line at the moment, and that's what we've all got our fingers crossed for. I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you have, please give it a like, please subscribe with those notifications turned on so you never miss one, and we'll see you again tomorrow for another show, hopefully breaking down some more positive news in the Arsenal world. But until then, we're still trying, but as always, up the Arsenal.